with Russian President Putin in the coming weeks. Stuart Smith reports the meeting would likely focus on the war in Ukraine.
Since the election of President Trump, the US, Ukraine, and Russia are sending the strongest signals in years that formal negotiations over ending the war in Ukraine could be a possibility.
The head of the Russian Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee told Russian state media that plans for a meeting are at an advanced stage and could take place this month or in March. Trump has previously said that he wants to bring the war in Ukraine to an end. Smith reporting the U.S. official may have more to say on the matter next week.
Special Representative for Ukraine and Russia, Keith Kellogg, says he will discuss his plan for ending hostilities with European leaders at next week's Munich Security Conference. Proposals could include some sort of neutral status for Ukraine, freezing the conflict where Russia currently controls territory, and security guarantees for Kiev.
Southern California Edison is acknowledging videos that suggest there's a possible link between their equipment and the devastating Eaton fires in the LA area. The company has not identified any evidence to confirm the link. They say it has not found broken conductors or evidence of faults so far where the fire started. And you know what? Maybe Alex Jones is right. He predicted California Governor Newsom would do this. Globalists wipe out the area so original owners can't rebuild. Governor No Sense on the boob tube saying it in so many words.
Previously mentioned the timeline for rebuilding would be 6 to 9 months. Is that going to happen? And should people rebuild in some parts of California, given how high the fire risk is?
You can't rebuild the same. So we have to rebuild with science. We have to build with climate reality in mind. We have to look at infrastructure, redundancy systems, ingress, egress as it relates to emergency management and planning, materials, all of that.
You can't rebuild the same. Ingress, regress, mumbo jumbo.
Climate reality in mind.
Right. This dude, man, is such a fraud. Wow. I mean, it is just, you can see through the back of his head, man, when you look at him. Unbelievable. And
I mean, we all build with climate reality in mind. I mean, it's like I live in Elizabeth, Colorado. I don't live in a grass hut.
Yeah, right.
Right. It's cold. It's windy. It's on the Palmer Divide. We built our house with climate reality in mind.
And snow and mud.
And snow and mud, right. So
right.
I guess, do I fall under his category? Am I now aggressive enough?
I think you are.
Climate reality?
I think you would qualify. Unbelievable. An Alabama death row inmate was executed Thursday evening, the state's first execution this year, and the fourth inmate ever put to death with nitrogen gas. Kanye,
really?
Yes.
Nitrogen gas?
Yes, with nitrogen gas.
Do you know how that works?
I do not know how
I don't know how that works. Do they just pump a room full of nitrogen gas and then you
I didn't watch the video.
I've never heard of someone dying that way.
I haven't either. I thought that was a first. I mean, you know, in the States, I thought, no, it is. It's hey, it's one way to get it done. Kanye West, speaking of that, is asking 47 to free accused sex trafficker Sean Combs, aka Diddy. He remains behind bars awaiting trial after several allegations of trafficking and sex abuse.
Kanye went nuts last night on X.
I heard about that. He was all over the place.
Oh, I'm a Nazi type stuff. I mean, it was crazy.
Jeez, man.
This guy lost his mind. And then you saw the Grammys, or I hope you didn't see the Grammys.
No, I did not see the Grammys. I heard about it.
Yeah,
that was awful.
If you're a Christian man, like he says, he follows Jesus, you don't do that with your girlfriend.
No, just for the audience that may have missed it, Jeff, because I'll describe it if you want to, but
you'll describe it.
Yeah.
Well,
I want to hear.
It was not appropriate. She took off her clothes, essentially.
Oh, yeah. Wow. I didn't see that.
Yeah, basically, it's Kanye's wife, and he gets her on the red carpet, and she is wearing
Oh,
just say
like
nylons.
pantyhose or something.
Yeah, if you can see through
it's
everything,
nothing.
there's nothing there. It is, I mean, is there a layer of some sort of material over the top of her body? Yes. But does it prevent us from seeing anything at all? Nope, not at all.
Wow.
She might as well have been naked. And there are a couple of things as far as the Grammys. There was a question there as far as whether or not Kanye was even invited, because he was escorted out later after he went through the red carpet line.
Oh, is that right?
His publicity department said that he was just there to get onto the red carpet. He wasn't concerned about the awards, so they were kind of demurring as to whether or not he actually was invited and had a ticket there. The important part, though, is I've got friends, obviously in the music industry, and there were some videos that made the rounds that were real interesting, and it showed Kanye and his wife before they get on the red carpet, and that is revealing. And I'm using that word intentionally because she didn't want to take off her coat. He's berating her.
Oh, wow.
He's getting in her face and going, come on. And she's like, no. You see her twice say no. And then he forces her to take the coat off. So this was not something that, in my opinion, she got on that red carpet and wanted to show everybody her bits and pieces. That's the video that I've seen behind the scenes that circulated through the music industry.
That's
it was
very
really
sad.
bad. Oh yeah, it was really, really
bad.
bad.
He looks like it's all falling apart.
And if you look at her face, you can tell, if you understand that conversation happened beforehand, it makes sense why she looks vacant. If you look at her face, she looks vacant, as if she is trying not to be present in that moment because of it. So yeah, it's awful. It's awful. Once you know what happened beforehand, those pictures take on a whole different context. If you see what's happening, stay away from all the naked parts. Take a look at her face. She's trying everything, in my opinion, she's trying everything psychologically to not be there in that moment. It's trauma. Yeah.
Yeah, that's bad. Well, evidently consistent with his buddy Diddy.
Yep.
That's horrible. All right, news brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills. Locally owned and operated since 1954. Online at lairfireplacepatio.com. Heartbreaking loss for the UNC Bears last night to Montana. Montana comes in and they upset Northern Colorado. It's 26 in Englewood, 27 in Thornton, and 28 in Denver. Yes,
so with nitrogen, it's pure nitrogen they put through a mask until you're suffocated.
Oh, okay.
And the ACLU was reporting that he shook, convulsed, writhed, and gasped for minutes until he was pronounced dead. It's because it was the loss of a life. I would like to point out that the ACLU has no problem with doing that to preborn children.
Yes.
As they shook, convulse, writhe, and gasp while they die. But,
Oh, my God.
The convicted murderer, they'll get out there.
Oh, wow. Thank you for that. Wow. I'll make sure I don't watch that.
Now, Blake, can I ask you about the Super Bowl?
Oh, yeah. I mean, hey, let's do predictions at 9 o'clock. But, yeah, it's going to be fun.
You ever been to one?
Oh, yeah, 7. I've been to 7
Super Bowls.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I've spent the weeks, I'd always, let's see, we'd start on Monday and we would leave on Monday morning the next week. So I've been to all the circus and the craziness, and it's been an honor and a privilege and a blessing. But at the same time, the best seat is in your house and in your living room. The best in-person Super Bowl, without question, was Super Bowl 32 in San Diego. Broncos, Packers, first Super Bowl championship ever.
That was good.
And who were you working for? What were you?
At the time, I was working in Dallas at the CBS affiliate. It was 6 months before I came back home to Denver. But, obviously I wanted to see, the Broncos win their first Super Bowl like everyone else. The amazing thing about that, man, and, young people don't get this, but you could walk around San Diego the night before that Super Bowl, and all Broncos fans were so just worried and concerned, and they were 2 touchdown underdogs, and they're like, no way they're gonna beat the Packers. Here we go, we're going back to another Super Bowl, and we're gonna lose again, and we've been to too many Super Bowls, and you really couldn't find Broncos fans anywhere downtown, at least not showing their stuff.
Yeah, PTSD. I remember that.
Remember the
grew up.
PTSD?
Yes,
Yes,
awful.
absolutely. And I remember being walking downtown, and Craig Morton was working for Channel 4 doing some Super Bowl stuff. He was the first quarterback to go to the Super Bowl with the Broncos, and he was doing interviews, and they were doing stuff, and we were talking and laughing, and it was amazing what a difference a day makes, because the day after at the airport in San Diego, you couldn't turn around. I mean, all you saw was Broncos gear in the new logo and the new uniform.
Yeah.
It's like, what? Wait a minute.
That was a
where were you
storied
yesterday?
year.
Yeah, where
I
were you
was
yesterday?
I was
Yeah.
16 years old, and you can imagine just watching that season as a 16-year-old, and because it just burns into your mind.
Yes.
I went to the parade afterwards, but that was the year with the wild card pick. That was the year of the snow blizzard, where they're literally bringing snow
to Buffalo,
snowmobiles to Old Cherry Hills to get guys out to the airport.
That's right.
Like, it was
Only one plane out to Buffalo.
right. And it was such a wild year. And then they cap it off with Elway and the helicopter move.
Yes.
And all, it'll never be that good again.
No, it won't. And I'll tell you one of the amazing things to me. The next year in Miami, Super Bowl 33 was such a business trip. I'll never forget sitting in the bus, one of the team buses at the time. I was working for KUSA at the time. So I'm sitting there, and it was, we're talking about an hour and 10 minutes after a Super Bowl victory. And I'll never forget Dan Neal, the former offensive lineman, walks up and goes, "Hey, man, I can't wait to go to sleep." And the bus was like quiet, and it was like a preseason game. He sits down, and he's like, "Oh, man, let's go." And they were so wiped and spent. They knew they were going to win that game. Everything unfolded and went downhill for the Falcons. And I'm sitting there going, "Wow, man, this guy just won his 2nd straight Super Bowl." And he's like, "Man, I want to go to bed."
That was what Terrell Davis did the night of the first Super Bowl too. Remember, he had the headache.
Yeah, had the migraines.
They had to put him in, even though he couldn't even see.
Yeah,
but they needed to throw off the defense, and he ran so hard and so much. And then they asked him, that night, "Did you go out and party? You're Super Bowl champ." He's like, "No, I collapsed in my hotel room." He's exhausted.
Yes, he did. Absolutely. He was wiped out. Now that was a celebration after that one. 32. I mean,
Wow.
it was crazy.
Now the show George Brockler.
Yeah,
we just
George
got
has got to call in and share this story.
Yeah, this is not
What
fair.
is he talking about?
He said he was in the Super Bowl parade, and a little bit of a bizarre story about John Elway as well. And we got to hear from George if he has time to call.
I gotta hear that.
The other one is, I have a really weird piece of memorabilia that is unique from that first Super Bowl win against the Packers.
Is that right?
Yeah. At home, I have an autographed picture of Brett Favre. And on that picture, he writes, "To Bill, I hope to see the Broncos in San Diego this year.
That's awesome.
Lots of luck."
No way.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he signed it earlier in the year. My uncle
cool.
was working with the Wisconsin Cheese Council, and Brett Favre was one of their major spokespeople. And so he did a lot of stuff with Brett and was a casual friend, not like hanging out friend, but like they'd see each other at events. "Oh, hi, how you doing? How you doing?" That's it. So they weren't close in any way, shape, or form. But he said, "Hey." And the funny thing is that it's the year also that was getting married. And so I have that picture from Brett Favre, and I also have an autographed picture from Brett Favre saying, "Dear Bill and Angela, lots of luck on the wedding. Are you sure you want to do this? Just kidding, Brett Favre." So
That's awesome.
Yeah. So the
That
one
is
about
cool.
the Broncos, everyone looks at that and they're like, "Brett Favre." I'm like, read it, and they go, "Oh my God!" Like, I know, and it's months before.
Doug texted in, says he's part of the team owners of the Packers.
Oh wow.
He has to disagree.
cool.
The better Super Bowl is the one right before it.
Of course.
Yeah, the one is.
Of course.
Yeah,
I have a story for that one.
And the uncle that I'm referring to is also part team owner of the Packers, has season tickets and owns a piece of the turf at Lambeau Field when they replaced it. It's in his freezer in the basement.
Oh,
He still
that's
has it
awesome.
frozen.
That is so cool.
I think we might be getting Jorge here.
All right.
I think George Brockler's going to call in
I love
and
it.
share this story.
I love it. I can't wait to
Do
hear
we
it.
have? All right.
Oh, you got
Joining us
Yeah.
now on the
We're blowing the clock
VIP
out.
line.
I love it.
George Brockler, District Attorney, Judicial District 23. Good morning.
Good morning, gents. Happy Friday. I love the reminiscing about the Super Bowl. I was not 16 when it happened, and yet it is burned in my old man brain as well.
Mhm.
Real quickly here, this is weird. My best buddy at the time, we were prosecutors together. His dad was a sergeant over at Denver Police Traffic Ops. And so he got us into the patrol car right behind engine number 7, which was the last one on the long parade. That's the one that L was going to stand on top of. So we pile in the back. Well, first we go to the staging area, and there's all around those there. Super cool. They had 1 million free drinks, including a lot of free bottles of Squirt, which I consumed. The parade wasn't supposed to last hours, and it did. So I'm in this last patrol car. It is, if you were down there, it is packed. I mean, there are jillions of people. You cannot get out of the car. So I'd say the first block or so, I start to feel that little bit of pressure on the bladder. And I'm like, no, I'm going to gut it out. And then another block is another hour. And it's like, I felt like I was going to explode. And I'm like, so I turn to my buddy, Dan, and I go, Dan, I got to do, buddy, I got to do this thing. And he's like, how are you getting out? I'm like, I don't know. He said, how about this? Go out of the car, run ahead, go to the bathroom and come back. I look around, buddy, I'd have had to have been passed around like a beach ball at a graduation for me to make it back to that car. So I'm like, I can't do it. So there's an empty Squirt bottle in the back of the patrol car. I take the guy's name was Lester Melanakis, was the name of the corporal, the tech that was driving the car. His brother goes on to become a court of appeals judge. Anyway, he's driving and he's got to keep people from getting between him and the fire engine to protect the engine and the parade, and no one can be on the back too. So he's slamming his brakes every couple feet, like, get off the car, and he's speeding back up. So I'm like, my eyes are rolling back into my head. So my buddy hands me the empty Squirt bottle, and he's like, go do that. So I take my buddy's jacket, I drape it over me. If anyone had ever looked in the car, they'd see me whizzing in this bottle. But I put the car, and we're bouncing back and forth, and I'm taking a leak in this bottle, and it is life-saving. So there meanwhile, there's no ability to control because of the motion of the car. So I'm not getting it all in the bottle. And I've never told my buddy to this day, but it's getting all over the seat and his jacket, which I don't know if he's ever cleaned. So we finally get to the back of the city and the county building. We almost literally pour out of the back of the car. I don't know what happened to the dribbles on the back of the seat, but I take the Squirt bottle. I don't know what to do with it. I set it down on the curb. I don't know where it went after that. We do the whole big thing, the celebration thing. As we're walking back, one of the cops says, hey, man, you're not going to be able to ride back in Melanakis' car. They need that to take the Elway family back to their car. And I'm like, uh-oh. And so we start running over the car. My buddy Dan goes, I left my checkbook back there. And so he runs over, knocks on the window. John Elway lowers the window, and he goes, hey, man, you've got my checkbook. Hey, Janet. Hey, John, congratulations. He's yelling. I'm over my big buddy's shoulder, and I'm like, you're like sitting in my pee. And they just drive off. And that's
I'm so glad you said that.
was Super Bowl champion John Elway sitting in my pee drink.
So in other words, you have a connection with John that very few of us have.
I do, and I've run into him several times since in political things, and every time I see him, I'm like, is today the day I tell him?
Yeah.
I mean, I just never have.
Yeah.
Never have.
Like,
I'm having
been so long.
visions of Dumb and Dumber and that whole scene of that
So
movie.
fantastic.
Oh, that is funny.
Thank you for letting me call in the chat with this.
Oh man, thank you
Oh,
so much.
man, I
Appreciate it.
love that.
All right.
I love that
Now,
story.
thank you, Mr. DE. Go out
Classic.
there and get the bad guys for us.
Well,
I'll do it, and I'll talk to you guys later.
Thank you so much. Oh, you're the best. That is so
That's
cool.
awesome. Elway's used to that, though. I mean, the Stink was his guard,
Yeah.
and there's a reason they called him Stink. So,
Oh yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
he
Stink
probably
tells-
would have
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
embraced it. No,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, Stink tells the story sometimes. He said, there's nothing more than the stranger feeling of being in a stadium of 70,000 plus people and standing there while they're all cheering, and you're wetting yourself. He said, he goes, you don't have time to go to the restroom during the plays.
yeah.
And sometimes you're taking the Gatorade and stuff, you don't. So he's like, you just, he goes, especially as a lineman, yes, you wet yourself because it makes the defensive lineman that much less likely to really come at you and other things. He's like, yeah. He goes, he remembers sitting there. He goes, they just come back from a TV timeout. They're in the huddle. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to let it go. He's like, you got to let it go before we get to the snap. And they sure did. Yep.
That is awesome,
I love that.
man.
Yeah.
So,
awesome.
talking about show planning, that's out the window.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
Have you met
exactly.
us?
Hey, I'll give it back to you so I can get ready for the
Oh, yeah,
next
thank
hour.
you so much. Yeah, and we got
Right.
to choose the news. So remember, man, we got that coming up
Yep.
too.
Whole lot to cover. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. So, a little off track on that one, but
That was fun though. Yeah.
now we know things about George Butler.
Yes, I know.
And some guy walking down the parade found a free bottle of squirt and was a little shocked.
Yeah, a little whoa, hang on.
So what
Why is
was
it
the
warm?
contents?
This is
Right.
weird. Yeah.
All right, U.S. border czar blames leaks for hindering immigration raids in Colorado suburbs, spotlighted by Trump. Donald Trump's border czar on Thursday blamed news media leaks for hindering a large-scale operation in a Denver suburb the president has held up in his efforts to link violent crime with immigration, the AP reporting. More than 100 members of TDA gang were targeted Wednesday. Remember seeing all that at apartment buildings and other sites in Denver and neighboring Aurora. It is unclear how many people were arrested. Now, what ended up happening is they went in and looked in these apartment complexes, and many of them were empty. And so what Tom Homan and others are saying is that immigration activists and some media hinting at maybe places like Channel 9 maybe were tipping off immigrants, saying that this is incredibly dangerous. This is going to lead to officers being ambushed, that type of thing. Channel 9 responding to this saying, look, we were only tipped off to these giant gatherings that you guys were putting together prior to your raids. You had like 300 agents. And then when you guys got together, we got notified. So we sent the news trucks down, and we didn't get there until around 9 a.m. You guys started gathering there at 6. We didn't tip off immigrants. So this is going to be a really interesting issue for the Trump administration, for immigrant activists. And do you arrest and hold them accountable if they are interfering with investigations? These immigrant activists, you may have seen the videos. They were out there with bullhorns shouting.
Yeah.
So they basically have these flyers up. Joan from Lakewood sent me a good example of this. If you see suspected ICE activity, you're supposed to call this phone number. And then they send out these attorneys with bullhorns, and they're saying, don't open your door. Consult with an attorney. You don't have to talk or show your ID to them or anything like that. So they directly interfere with the ICE investigations. Now, is it understandable if they're going out and getting kids and stuff like that? I guess so. But right now, ICE is targeting violent Venezuelan gang members. So are these people directly interfering with an effort to make our communities safer? What are your thoughts? Give us a call, 303-696-1971. Bill, what do you think?
Yeah, it worries me about, the tip-off, but I understand why you're worried about them not going after the gang members. And there's part of it that you also look at. The TV news trucks will cause attention as far as what's going on. And you might want to also, look at, is there communication or publicly facing communication from some of the TV or news stations as far as what they're covering and what they're doing, because that's an easy way to find out. Also, just because of social media, it's really easy, even if someone isn't being tipped off. You're talking about, the amassing of agents. And if there's someone in the neighborhood, that person might just post something on social media that some of the gang members or the illegals would be, interested in. And then, of course, someone then, as Joan points out, calls the phone line. It does bother me that you would interfere with the arresting of the TDA gang members, but the problem I have is you don't know who they're going after when ICE is assembling. There's a report, I haven't been able to verify it, but there was a report that they were looking at getting into a DPS school last week. And I've been trying to verify some of the information, and I haven't talked about it as if it's fact on the air because I haven't been able to verify it. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but that would be weird because I'm curious as to whether or not there were violent TDA gang members inside of the school. Again, I don't know all the information, and I know that DPS has made announcements for when they're traveling to extracurriculars on buses that, hey, ICE may pull us over and here's going to be the procedure that is going to happen inside. So that also is kind of a question about who they're targeting. And I think that's why you're seeing people being willing to leak the information, is because we don't know beforehand, hey, we're going after a very, very bad group of gang members, or are we going after a family where one of them works under the table at a construction site, the other one's working under the table maybe at a restaurant and dishwashing or something else, or even being a server.
But that's the point. You shouldn't interfere. I believe that if you are tipping off ice, if you are interfering, if you're out there on a bullhorn, if you are getting in the way of law enforcement trying to do their jobs according to what our laws have been written, if you're interfering with that, then you should be prosecuted.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Do you agree or disagree with me? I'd love to hear from you. 303-696-1971. Coming up, you choose the news. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
All right, it's the Friday you've all been waiting for. It's the Friday before Super Bowl Sunday, and Friday, it's the loser edition of You Choose the News.
Yes, it is the time when we bring back the stories that Jeff and Blake felt were worthy of our attention. It is the loser edition of You Choose the News. Buckle up.
You are one pathetic loser.
Let's go, loser! You're a loser!
A losers club, bunch of losers.
You're such a loser. You made me feel like a loser!
She's a loser.
You are such a loser.
Loser.
Yes, you know how we do this. Silly stories on the World Wide Web, given even more ridiculous headlines, but somehow Jeff and Blake decided these were not worth our attention. They get a second shot at glory playing America's favorite fake radio news game show. And we do this because nobody in charge has any idea that we waste valuable airtime. So shh, this is a secret. All right, gentlemen, here are our returning stories. Headline number 1, unsafe at any speed, electric boogaloo. Headline number 2, it's a new start. Headline number 3, don't demonstrate competency. And number 4, jumping into action. Mr. Hunt, your choice,
It's a
sir.
new start, please.
Yes, it is a new start. It has been a wonderful day because an organization in America is going to get a chance to wipe the slate clean and get a brand new start because the Proud Boys have lost the trademark to their name. They have lost it to the black church that the group vandalized back in 2020. The Metropolitan African Methodist Episcopal Church in Washington, D.C. has been granted full ownership of the group's trademark in a February 3rd ruling from a judge to the Superior Court of District of Columbia. It also gives them the lien on the trademark and the power to block the Proud Boys from using the trademark or selling any licensed goods like T-shirts, hats, without the church's approval. While they are complaining, the idea is, guys, this is a way to just start over. You could be boys very proud or very super happy boys or something else. I'm just saying it's a branding opportunity. You should take this and embrace it because, you know, it's
Is
not
that
like
court ordered? Is that how did
Yeah.
they get up with the?
Yeah, because of the vandalism, part of the damage that was done in order to pay it back, the Proud Boys couldn't write the check, and so they got control of the license for the logo and
gotcha.
everything in order to
There you
make the
go.
money off of it. Yeah,
Yeah, don't
so-
vandalize churches.
Yeah, don't do that. Yes, yeah, that's a bad idea. All righty, Blake Olson, sir. Unsafe at any speed, electric boogaloo, don't demonstrate competency, or jumping into action.
Oh man, I thought you were gonna have a Hall of Fame quarterback sits in my urine.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Who is George
Uh,
Brockler for 500
Yeah,
years?
exactly. Man, I love that story. Electric boogaloo.
All right, unsafe at any speed, electric boogaloo. We now have a full year of data, and it turns out there is an automobile on the road that's more dangerous than the Ford Pinto. You might remember the Ford Pinto conveniently put the gas tank in the back of the car, so when he got hit from the rear, kaboomy! Big giant explosion. Not very good. Now we have a car that is more dangerous when it gets into accidents on the road because it's burst into flames more often. It is the Cybertruck. Elon Musk and Tesla's Cybertruck is 17 times more likely to have a fire fatality than a Ford Pinto. 17 times more likely to have a fire fatality.
Aren't they battery operated?
But they can catch on fire. There are some things in there that, yes, they can catch on fire. And the problem being that they also, you have no National Highway Safety Administration crash testing yet for the Cybertruck either. So there's no crash testing ratings for the Cybertruck. And now it's more likely to burst into flames and kill you.
Hey Billy, when
Yes.
was the first one of those cars? When did they come out? I mean, the actual cars.
The Cybertruck?
Yeah.
That would have been late 2023, I believe,
Okay,
is when they first were delivered.
Okay.
Yeah. So that would be late 2023 is when they were first delivered. Yeah.
Trucks,
So
okay.
that's a lot of fun. So
Yeah.
boom. Yes. All righty. Now, final choice, Mr. Hunt. Don't demonstrate competency or jumping into action.
Jumping into action.
Yes, this is an extreme instance of life imitating art. The author of a book about a rope-wielding hero using his jump rope to save others actually saved his neighbor and the neighbor's dog. This happened in an ice pond in Indiana. He noticed that his neighbor's dog went through the ice. Neighbor went through the ice when he was trying to save the dog. He grabbed his trusty jump rope, sprung into action, and pulled them to safety. He's a professional jump roper that's actually performed in front of 2 U.S. presidents.
Oh,
Kind of
there
cool.
you go. All
Yeah.
right, you're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
It is 7 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Friday, February 7th, 2025. It's Super Bowl weekend. And you've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Congratulations. You just woke up in the greatest country in history, and Donald Trump's your president. Feels like a dream. We got a whole hour planned for you of engaging conversations, critical analysis, but most importantly, your phone calls and texts, because this is where Denver's voice is heard loud and clear. So grab a cup of coffee, Denver, and let's dive into the issues that matter most to you right here, right now. Coming up after news and comment with Blake Olson, King Soopers employees on strike right now for about 2 weeks. That's what they're planning. Would you cross the picket line? Where do you fall along this? King Soopers wanting some changes to their working hours, some health care, or are they just asking and demanding too much? It's just constant union stuff again. They're harming their own employees, this union. So you're happy to bust through that little wall and go right into King Soopers. We'll get to that and more, plus phone calls. But first, news and comment with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Thanks, Jeff. 29 and clear in Denver, expecting a high of 53. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, a U.S. district judge in Massachusetts is pausing the Trump administration's buyout offer to federal employees. The deadline for employees to accept the offer was originally set for the end of the day Thursday. The judge ordered that the deadline be pushed back until at least Monday. DOJ continues to expose the corruption, and many say USAID is only the beginning. But as Elon posted on X, yeah, this was on TV, and CNN looking out for your best interest.
So this is a 19-year-old high school graduate who has used the unfortunate nickname Big Balls online. So that would be one way that we could refer to him. He is now working at Musk's behest inside DOJ. And we looked into his background. And so we found, several notable things, Aaron, one of which is that this individual has founded multiple companies, including one with another unfortunate name, Tesla.Sexy LLC.
Why is that an unfortunate name?
Which he established in 2021. He would have been around 16 years old. Now, this LLC controls dozens of web domains.
So, Kara, you hear this, and you have known Elon Musk for years. So now you look at these young men who are now in data and in the private information about maybe hundreds of millions of American citizens as young as 19, the big balls here that Katie's talking about. Most of them are in their early 20s. There's an exception I'm going to get to in a minute. I'm curious, though, Kara, how well does even Musk know these young men, do you think?
I have no idea. I think there's no vetting whatsoever, as you can see, that's taking place. It took Katie and the really great team Wired has done an astonishing job here.
Hitting the hard stuff. Good job, CNN. The whole thing sounds like an SNL skit.
I was going to say, it sounds like an SNL skit. And,
when they were funny 30 years ago.
Look, you tell that part of the underlying anger they have is just towards, young men. Right?
Yes.
Here you have guys that are very talented, tech-oriented, that in a decade ago were all out in San Francisco building Uber, building X, building Facebook, whatever it might be, earning a fortune. Now we've taken those same types of skills and you're ripping apart the deep state, the swamp, diving into where the money is really going. You're exposing a lot of it, and they're just mad because the cabal is being broken up right in front of them for the whole public to see. And
by teenagers.
It's these little men. Did you see what his little handle was when he was on Instagram?
I got a question, though.
Yeah.
Are we worried about the racism and misogyny at all with some of these people? At least
sure.
one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why one of them was fired.
He resigned.
And you understand what he said, too. You saw what he wrote. The guy that was, and again, this is one of the
one guy.
I didn't see what he wrote.
I know, but one guy that was working with SpaceX and Tesla and was personally brought in by Elon Musk in order to be one of the top 2 guys at Doge, one of the top 2 guys that was given access to the Treasury payment system and other. This isn't just some dude. This was basically the number 2 to 3 person that Elon Musk brought in. And this is a person that had already been working for years on his companies and been posting things on Elon's platform of Twitter. And this could have been an easy way. Elon could have figured out who this person is, but I don't know if he was ignorant of it, didn't care. I have no idea. But people went back and looked, and he wrote things like, I wrote one of them down. He liked a eugenic immigration policy. He also wrote, you couldn't pay me to, he also said, you couldn't pay me to marry outside of my ethnicity. And then I wouldn't mind if Gaza and Israel were both wiped off the face of the earth. But the issue is, it's not that he's resigning. The issue is he was there in the first place, that Elon had him in a position of power, trusted him enough, despite evidence that existed on Elon's own social media platform that was tagged to him, and Elon brought him into the government, and we didn't have any background check or vetting of who he was put in. He would not have passed a government background check, but yet he was placed into positions where he had access to sensitive information. This is an issue. I understand and I appreciate the fact that he resigned, but this is an issue in the process. This is why it is important to follow the process. This kid never would have been in that position if he would have had to go through a regular government background check like he should.
If that process is fair, yeah, but also you're dealing with speed here. So are we going to take 6 months to run these guys through some process?
This took less than a week for a reporter. It would take 6 months.
No, but I'm talking
less
about
than a week.
I'm talking about the process you want them to go through. Is it an efficient process to review people? Is it going to gum up stuff for 6 months? And is it a fair process? Those are all questions I'd like to explore as well.
I would think that this guy would get weeded out
Well,
inside
yeah,
of
no,
that
and he
process.
should be.
And that
He
would
should
be,
be.
and I
But-
would say that we come to the conclusion that would be necessarily fair. But the issue being that Elon's choices that he made put this dude in charge. Not only was he in a higher position inside of his 2 companies of SpaceX and Tesla, he was posting these things on Elon's site that could be easily verified by Elon if he cared and even bothered to look. And then he put him into an important role in Doge that access information. There are a whole series of questionable decisions here. I appreciate that he resigned, and I understand your skepticism on the background check. I don't share it, but this would not have made it regardless. Even if you're not saying it's fair, he doesn't make it through, and that's important. And we should talk about that because that's Elon's decision making. He took this dude and put him in that position. That's a serious question.
In order to confront Elon on this, you'd have to prove that he knew that this guy was posting.
Yeah, he didn't know.
Or he was ignorant of it, and he was posting on Twitter. He was posting on Elon's website, and he worked for Elon, and he didn't bother to do the background check. He didn't bother to do the minimum of the person. Elon cannot care, or he can be ignorant of it. Neither one of those is okay.
To me,
neither one of those is an okay decision.
I feel like the system kind of worked. People found out what he posted. He was removed from his government position. There wasn't any fighting about it. You don't see Elon going out there and defending him or anything like that. And what I want to see happen, because I believe the government is wildly bloated, corrupt, is I want to see people go in, expose it. I want it to be fast moving. I want to catch these bureaucrats off guard. I love the whole system. This is exactly what I wanted to see with Donald Trump's presidency.
And keep in mind, though, that the system that you say worked is asking the reporters, who already we question, and then being legitimate, to do the work of finding out whether or not these people should be in those positions.
And they exposed him, he's gone. So I don't have any problem. I'm not defending the guy. I'm not saying he needs to be in there.
The federal government should be doing the vetting first. We shouldn't say, well, they're okay unless...
I just don't trust it.
Well, here's the problem. Here's the problem with that bromide, and I understand why you're going there. But here's the issue, is the idea being, well, we will trust them until the reporters prove us otherwise. That's not the way you go about hiring for federal government positions, in my opinion. Also, though, the issue is the distrust of the federal system. Talk to me about the distrust of the reporters in the mainstream media. You tell me that if someone in Newsweek or someone like MSNBC came out with this exact same report, that it wouldn't be, oh, that's MSNBC, that's Newsweek. It would have been given the same short shrift of, I don't trust the government. So it's not, I disagree with you about the system. It's you have latent bias. You've put latent bias into the system, but that should have, even with this guy, should have weeded him out. The system should have been used. should have been used in this case. And it's wrong
And
that it
look,
wasn't.
I'm not willing to throw out everything Elon Musk is doing because they got one bad apple.
I am not either, but it does put into framework his decision making, who he's putting in power, his lack of curiosity about who's given that power, and that maybe, just maybe, as American citizens, we should be more curious about
Bill,
who he's giving access
after
to.
the last 4 years of Joe Biden and everyone he was putting into power, I don't think it's a fair complaint. But
Show me the person that had this type of access.
I
and
think
these
you
type
had
of
4
statements.
years of wild incompetency, including the president at the very top who couldn't even string a sentence together. So for them all of a sudden to go, well, we need to really care about the process.
Well, if it's ranked incompetency, then you got to understand that the incompetent administration rolled the Republicans. That's an indictment of the people that are there running it right now.
Ilhan Omar is one of the biggest racists in the world, and she's still in Congress. So, I mean, you see this up and down. Nancy Mace talking about more great use of your money through the CIA, aka USAID.
More than $10 million in taxpayer funds